Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sports Development and Peace Summit. This is round 2, interview 2 with Joanne Love. In a minute, I'm going to ask her to share her sports career journey and what she specialises in. But before I start, if you've got any questions to ask Joanne, just let me know in the comments section with question in capital letters, and I'll pick a question from you. So we want to make this really interactive with you today. So please do that. And if you're watching the replay, please support the show. We have a goal today to educate 10,000 people through Facebook, and we'll get rocking and rolling. Joanne, please you share to the audience who you are and what you specialize in, particularly in the sports industry, and a little snapshot of your sports career journey as well.
Okay, all right. Oh, many hats, Ed, many hats. But basically now I work with athletes and coaches to help improve their performance. So with coaches, picking up the little things that they may do that affects their athletes' performance, and with athletes to help them over the line so they perform better and also that their mental health's really well. My journey started a long time ago, before you were born probably, Ed, as a swimming coach. And it was through a failure that I had with one of my athletes that sent me down a different path. So into psychology, learning about psychology, and haven't stopped learning since that day. So continuous development, continuous learning is a big point for me.
We'll talk about that in a lot more detail, but with regards to today being International Day for Sport Development and Peace, out of interest with regards to how we're living at the moment, what does spirit of sport mean to you, reflecting in how we're living at the moment?
I actually think it's really interesting. I think that we may go back a little bit. I think there's been a lot of pressure put on younger athletes to perform at higher levels, and I think this is maybe just what we need to take a step back and recognise the importance of sport for what it is. You know, an opportunity to have fun, an opportunity to learn about the competitive process, an opportunity to be friends with, your opponent rather than be the enemy. And I love the idea that it's the spirit of sport because, sport's all about playing and having fun and enjoying your opponent and not being in battle, so to speak, although that's what it gets at the higher level.
Absolutely. And does that sort of relate to what you said earlier about that learning lesson with that first swimmer you had, in what you've just said about sometimes, as much as we want young athletes to live sort of the dream with that professional growth of a career, but sometimes go back to the roots of, our values as, what sport's all about. I just wanted to share on the psychology side, if that's okay. I'm going to go straight into our conversation of what you've learned from the psychology of sport, which can be used at the elite end, but also at the grassroots level as well.
Definitely. So for example, that young athlete that I was talking about, he basically walked onto pool deck and said, "I can't swim. The water's too blue." And I'm like, "What do you mean you can't swim? The water's too blue?" And of course, he was suffering from performance anxiety. Instead of me just sitting down and saying to him, "How are you feeling right now?" I tried everything that I'd learned in my coaching courses to date, try and distract him, listen to music. What can I do? Instead of just asking that one simple question, how are you feeling? Is there anything I can do to help you? Didn't do that. And in hindsight, probably should have. Might have been a different outcome, may not have, but you just never know. So, yes, I think that the pressure that we put on some athletes is sometimes overwhelming. Also, the way we set things up for them can be overwhelming. So a big learning process for both me as a coach and now coming back into it to help coaches. It's almost like a hyper awareness I have. I can sort of see what they're doing wrong and just cringe. And I can see it with athletes when they walk out onto, to play a game. In Australia, we have Australian rules, and there's a coach here that, for a long time would walk out with his head down. I just go, kids aren't going to play well because he's worried. They pick up on the worry and they play like they're worried. So, we coaches have a big impact on athletes and their performance.
Out of interest, reflecting now, what have you learned the most from your coaching journey?
It was probably something I've only just learnt in the last couple of years. So as part of my ongoing study, I was seeing that athletes were finishing races and saying, "Oh, that was crap. It might have been a personal best. It might have been the best they've ever done in their life, but they still weren't happy with what they were doing. And it came down to the goals that they were setting. So I think in the last 2 years, I've put a big emphasis on goal setting and how we set goals. And I believe there's another level above SMART goals. I think we need to look at how effective our goals are, what's the influence on our goals, and what's the focus surrounding our goals. Are they clear? Do they follow our purpose in life? Are they what we value? And I think that's really important, how we go about setting goals. And for a lot of athletes, we can't control how other athletes perform. So their ideal goal may be to win, but you cannot control the other athletes in a race. You know, their performance one day just may be so much better than your performance. We just can't control that. You have to set goals around things that you can control.
Just on that note, and I know we're on Facebook and it's a totally different audience because you do fantastic micro articles on LinkedIn. I actually been reading them the last sort of 6 months. I find them really fascinating. Really, I do. And I want to just share this point on 2 points: goal setting and anxiety with regards to families, because we've got parents watching this. And I was wondering if you could use the same sort of strategies you use with your athletes, but with parents at home who've got a lot going on, like taking care of the children, doing all the tasks, staying at home because of what's going on around us. Would you just mind providing some guidance on that sort of angle, if that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. Now's a great time to start your children with basic goal setting. And children learn goal setting from their parents with the actions that they do. So there's no time like now is a great time to be working with goals. So what are the activities for the day? Plan out your day. I like to use the rule of three, the power of three. You know, when we think about life, we've got 3 little pigs, 3 stooges, you know, there's all those complements of 3. And I like 3 goals. So if we can stick with 3 goals for a day, and I like to say 2 that are relatively easy, 2 that you know you probably will achieve, and then 1 that's a bit more of a push. Now, if you set that with your child, and you need to speak to your child and ask them what goals that they would like to achieve during that day. Make it about them, not about you and what you would like to achieve, because they need to be invested in this. And that's what I said earlier on, it's the influence that you have. So if they have their own goals, they're more likely to achieve them. If you ask them what they want to do, the likelihood is going to be a lot greater that they're going to work towards making those goals. So 3 goals, 2 that are a little bit easy, 1 that's a little bit harder. And then what you need to do is you need to celebrate at the end, because what that does is activates dopamine, and dopamine drives us to do it again and again and again. And we're now finding that dopamine is instrumental in learning. So it's going to help them. So if they're setting goals around schoolwork, it's going to help them learn better by setting those little goals to achieve them. So celebrating, really easy. We don't need to do anything special. You don't need to go out and buy anything. Well, you can't now anyway. So best thing to do, favourite meal, let them pick the movie. It might be, you know, the amount of time you allow your child to go on Skype to talk to their friendship groups. So there's little things that you can do to help celebrate and just raise that dopamine and recognise it.
Look, I find this really interesting. And look, everybody who's listened live, please comment your thoughts on that, because I think that's brilliant. And also it creates a bit of engagement with the family, the parents. Also, they could have their own goals as well. So it's a sort of, you know, fun game at home to get things done in the day, despite being at home all the time. Now, I just want to pivot the conversation to our theme with this summit is about skill sets and upskilling ourselves during our time at home. So out of interest, what skill set has supported you during your coaching career journey, looking back now?
I think being innovative and not sitting down and just saying, hey, I can't do anything more. Probably the other thing is I hate to say this, Ed, but I think there's more than one skill set. There's a group of them. So, you know, for me, it's always been seeing the possible amongst the impossibility. It's always a big one for me. We sort of sit there and go, gee, you know, we're in a horrible world. my business is run down, I've got nothing I can do, but where is the possibility in this? So to me, there's no time like the better for setting goals at the present time. What's something new? What's some strategy that you wanted to learn, or what's something that you've always struggled with? Now's the time. We've got plenty of time on our hand to sit down and actually strategize and work out how you're going to learn that new activity. So seeing the little possibilities. The other thing is being determined. Things in life are not going to happen unless you're determined to make them happen. I mean, you can sit there and want it for all people sit there and expect it to come to them. It won't come to you. You've got to go out and get it. So be determined to make that happen.
So what is that first step? So people are watching live and they're thinking, yeah, we want to make something impossible the possible. What is that first step from a strategy point of view?
From a strategy point of view, I always work backwards. So start with where you want to be, work backwards and break it down into smaller and smaller steps until you know what the first step is, and it should be a small step, a very small step, one that you know that you can accomplish to get you started. But if you try and work forward, the brain struggles to take that big leap, so it won't get started. So, coaches do this all the time when they're planning their season out. They work backwards. They go, okay, we want to make the finals. Where do we need to be by then? Where do we need to be 2 months prior to that? Where do we need to be at the start of the season? That's your first step. So, if you can do that and organise that first step straight off, that's the way you're going to get started and make it easier for you.
Well, you can see my big smile because that's how we did this summit. We looked at this day first and when we went backwards to make it possible. So honestly, from experience, and the summit team are commenting as well, it does work. It's just having that belief to carry on. And the one thing I do want to highlight with you, Joanne, because you've inspired me a lot on this theme now, is leadership. I think this is a great opportunity for us to be better leaders within ourselves. Would you mind just providing some tips of your definition of leadership and how can people apply leadership to their homes?
Leadership's just somebody that motivates the rest of the world, in my opinion. I don't think you need to be the best person, the most knowledgeable person, but you need to have, I believe, somebody who's going to support you. That's number one, and help make you take the next steps to go forward as well. But leadership, I think today, just saying what I was saying before, being innovative, trying something different, motivating the whole team around you. So earlier on, I talked about, what your values are and what you stand for. When you're a leader, you need to incorporate all the values of your team and have shared values. If you don't have shared values, if you're off on one planet and your team's on another planet, it's not going to work. So need to work with your team and listen to them. Don't think that you know everything, and work with them and utilise different strategies to make it happen for you. I hope that answered the question.
It did. And this is just from your LinkedIn posts. I see you've been trying out new technology during this period. So how do you get out your comfort zone out of interest during this period?
My comfort zone is probably doing more writing. I'm not a fan of writing. You may think I do all those little micro messages on LinkedIn, but I really struggle with writing. So now for me is a great time to work on my writing skills and what I need to do, because I think that there's, every market sees things in a different way. Some people like to read, some people like to watch videos. So if you can spread yourself across all areas, you're going to be better in the long run. So learning things.
Yeah, learning is key. And as you said earlier, it's the perfect opportunity to implement it with the time we've got. Out of interest, what changes do you want to see in the world of sports when sports are back on the map and competing, out of interest?
I'd like to see more participation in rather than highly competitive sport. In saying that, I'd like to see the younger competitors get a chance to try all sports. So, the big question for a lot of, I suppose, people in the management side of things, their emphasis is on the highly performance sports athletes, which it should be. But I think there needs to be more time spent engaging with the participants at the lower level and letting them progress slowly. I think coaches need to just take a little bit of a step back and let our athletes enjoy the sport for what it is rather than rush them down a fast progression. And we've seen that, with Norway, that takes all competitive sport away from the younger athletes until they turn 13. They've had phenomenal success at the last 2 Winter Olympics. So, maybe we need to take away the competitive games from our 10-year-olds, our 12-year-olds, and just let them enjoy it. Let them run around the field. Let them enjoy kicking the soccer ball all over the ground and just participate. Because why do we start sport in the first place? To have fun.
Yeah, and to stay healthy as well. And just going back to a bit about you said about anxiety, what tips would you give people? Because in the UK, it's actually one of the biggest things that's grown significantly with like breathing techniques during this time because everybody's isolated. So would you mind just providing an insight of how you work with your athletes with anxiety and performance, but it's more performance at home, if that makes sense?
Yes, yeah. So anxiety is a huge one. I think, and I know a lot of people suffer from anxiety badly, but in saying that, I also think there's a proportion of the population that start to feel a bit worried or stressed about what they're doing, and they quickly label it as anxiety, where really it's only just anxiousness within themselves. But there's lots of methods that you can utilise. And what I'll say in addition is what works for one person won't necessarily work for another person. So it's important that if you're not finding relief, that you try something else. So, the worst thing you can do is compare yourself to your friend. Breathing worked for them, but it doesn't work for you. So as a whole, exercise, always important. So if you can keep the exercise up, that's great for mental health and helping you. Breathing is great. There's other strategies. So some people will utilise music to calm them down. Music can distract you. If you dance around the house to a favourite tune, it can distract you, what you're thinking and going on inside your head. I love to use a technique called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is 5 things that you see, 5 things that you can hear, 5 things that you can feel, and then you do the same with 4 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 4 things you can hear, and then the same with 3. And that just distracts you from your initial thinking. The biggest thing with anxiety, though, is trying to work out what is causing it and where it's coming from. So it usually can be externally. So it can be, all the factors that are going on around you at the moment. So if you're trying to work from home and you've got kids screaming and you need a quiet environment, that's external. Or it could be what's going on in your head. That's internal. Is it, you don't think you're competent enough to do what you are doing. So first of all, you need to work out where it's coming from, and then you need to work strategies around those. So if it's external, what can you do to block out that external noise that's triggering and making you anxious? So is it, giving activities to the kids to keep themselves occupied just so you can have some quiet time? Is it working out a plan if you're with a partner? I'm going to do work for this time. You look after the kids for that time. We're also used to working from 9 to 5, but in this time period, it may mean that we need to, work at different hours and have one parent look after the kids while one's working. So you can get some quiet time and you're not feeling anxious and overwhelmed by trying to complete your work with all the noise going around. Internally, what can you do to help yourself? Well, self-talk, always a great one. What is something that's very positive? What's something that you can do well? Learn from that and utilise it in self-talk to be positive about your future and what you want to see and where you want to go.
Wow. I really do hope the audience enjoyed that as much as I did. This is why we're doing this summit. Look, Joanne, that was brilliant. And out of interest, we're sort of near to the wrapping up stage. What are you currently doing now, and how can people interact with you online?
Well, probably the best way is to go onto my LinkedIn and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, which is just Joanne Love. I also have a new website which is all around goal setting, and you can take the goal setting online indicator test to see how well your goal setting is. And there's also an online course to go with that. That's through proactiveperformanceaustralia.com. So all one word, Proactive Performance Australia. Huge, I know, and then just .com, and you'll find the link to the indicator on the website. Feel free to take it. I'm happy to discuss with you how it's going and what you need to do going forward. But there's also an online course that you can participate if you want to take another step with your goals. And you don't need to be an elite athlete to do this. You can be anybody whatsoever. You can be a sports development officer. How well do you set your goals for what you want to do in life and where you want to go in your sports career? Not many people actually set goals. They want it to fall into their lap, but they don't set the goals to make it happen. So there's opportunities for everybody.
Absolutely. Look, everybody, Joanne, we'll put those links in the comment sections without a doubt with that goal setting and your website. And look, if I just love you guys, if you're watching live, just to share your biggest takeaway and just put hashtag Spirit of Sport. Please share it on Twitter. And we're trying to get a trend there if possible. But most importantly, comment below as well. Honestly, Joanne, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you this morning or this afternoon for you in Australia. And look, thank you so much. And I know we're going to connect again without a doubt and hopefully one day meet you in person. But with regards to the summit, thank you and appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Ed. Enjoyed it very much.